Thank you very much. Y'all are much too kind. My name is Chris Vaughn. It's good to be here tonight, and I want you to turn an immediate look at someone and say, you. Tell them, say, you are in for a treat. Because after this, there's free ice cream. Okay. Didn't have anything to do with it here. No, it's not. Okay. Okay, listen up. My name's Chris Vaughn. I'm 38 years of age, and I get to do this for a living, and this is what I do. My ability or gift, sometimes I don't think I have a lot, is to talk. This actually in my notes, one time I was doing talk radio, and they took me from an hour format to a 2-3 hour format, and I looked at my wife, I said, gosh, 3 hours? That's a long time. You think I can talk that long? She goes, please. Walked out, so... how many know it's good to have somebody who believes in you like that? You know, just really stand behind you. I've got my wife with me tonight. She's, I'm not going to tell her age. We've been married 16 years. We got married when we were 4, so she's 20. And we adopted 3 kids. Actually, not 3 kids are adopted. We've adopted them, and we're hoping to adopt out the 3 that we got right now. Okay. And get rid of all of them. No, I'm teasing. I would never do it. Anyway, I've been married 16 years, and I want to say right now, I thank God for my wife who supports me and loves me and encourages me. How you know it's good to have somebody who helps you believe in your dream? And so look at somebody and say, this is a good day, so let's get ready. My name's Chris. My name's Chris Vaughn. Now, here's what I'm going to do tonight. I'm just going to share some principles. I am going to share some ideas. I do not have all the answers to life. Look at somebody and say, you do not either, but you think you do. How many know that's true? We all think we have some idea. Who in here remembers when you were very young, and now you get to where you are and you think, my gosh, I was stupid. Who's ever done that? I didn't have a clue. Okay. But I get to share some, and so I'm not going to share anything life-shattering in some ways, but how many of you know that no principle is good unless you apply it? So if all we do is talk about these things and never do them, it doesn't help us out. So a couple things. I've been married 16 years, got married March the 12th of 1988. I remember that because I want to live. And right after we got married, this is true, right after we got married, we both gained, 25 pounds in about 3 months. And I was weighing 180, so I'm about 200. And she went to the doctor, and she said, why am I gaining weight? And he looked at her and he said, honey, and this is true. He said, this is a medical fact. If you are happy and content, you will gain weight. That is a medical fact. And I got home and she told me that, and I said, well, dear God, if we get much happier and content, we gonna die. I said, we better pace our happiness out a little bit because we could die. Right after we got married, we made the pact that we would never go to bed mad. And that whoever was wrong and whoever had caused the problem would stay up and get it worked out. And I hadn't slept in 16 years, okay? Just living in that couch. That's not true. One of the other things, too, is when we got married, was standing on the porch. And have you know that it's always fun to watch newlyweds. I think it's fun now to watch newlyweds. And you watch them, and they just hold hands, and they sit there, and they just, and they do that stupid little, argument. Where do you want to go? I don't care where you want to go. Wherever you want to go, baby. Well, I don't care either. If you've been married a while, you're just like, hush and let's go, okay? Get in the car. I'm just going to take you somewhere, okay? I'm going to take her somewhere and you somewhere because y'all are making me sick, okay? We're on the front porch and there's a young couple across the street. And we've been married a couple of years. And they are newlyweds. They are all over each other, just hugging and kissing and it was just bizarre. She hits me in the arm. She goes, why don't you do that? I said, well, okay, but I don't even know her. So, anyway, I got 3 kids, too. I got Sarah Beth, who is 13. She's my shadow. She's gone with me. She's always gone with me everywhere, except when she was 2. When she was 2, after church, every Sunday, she would beg to be taken with other people. She would go from car to car doing this. You take me home. I'll go home with you. And I'd go up to get her in that loving, fatherly way that I have. And I would go, Sarah Beth, come with me. You don't take me home. I don't go. And some reason, I do parenting things now. And so, but anyway, she's always going with me. And then I have Molly, who's my informant. If you know Molly, that's my nickname for Molly since she's about 2 years of age. Which when she was 2, we didn't have a clue what she spoke. She sounded Chinese. And sometimes we wish she would revert back and sound Chinese, okay? And then I have Luke, who's 6, and he's the enforcer. And in fact, it was just so funny. We were driving to church today, and I looked in the back. And, you know, we go to one of those churches where people lift their hands and, you know, and stuff. And I looked in the back, and he had his hands lifted. And I thought, man, my son's worshiping the Lord. Then I realized he was being Superman. I was like, I'm so let down. You know, I was like, yeah, you go. Hush back there, okay. Anyway, so I got a couple principles I'm going to give you. Everybody say number one. Say number one. You got to know who you are in life. I mean, you really got to discover who you are, your gifts, your talents, your abilities. And more than that, you got to accept it. Now, I started speaking when I was 16. My first actual speaking event in a church service was when I was 16. I remember when I was 18, I had to run this entire, in an auditorium-style setting. I had to run the entire thing. I had to MC it. I had to keep it. When the teacher came up to me right before we started, she said, Chris, everything in this event depends on you. Can you handle it? And I looked at her, and I don't know where it came from. Without any question, I said, I said, no problem. I said, don't worry about it. Later on in drama and stuff, we had to imitate all the teachers and stuff. And I had 2 teachers who were totally ticked off with me for about 2 weeks and wouldn't even hardly speak to me. And they were good friends at the time, but I had made so much good fun of them. And how many of you know some of us have a gift of that to mock other people? Okay. That is my gift. So anyway, but you got to know who you are. And as a young speaker, minister kind of, I always wanted to be serious. I always wanted to be taken very serious for content and profound, and changed my voice. And I actually watched Billy Graham so much I could have people go to heaven. There's a home for you today. I mean, I just love in fact, a number of weeks ago, I got to speak to the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association in Charlotte on a Monday morning, and there's about 175. In fact, it was just like being in a church service. Lady looked at me and she says, no one will be here at 5 till 8. But in 5 minutes, almost 200 people will walk in this room. It was just like church on a Sunday morning. There wasn't nobody there. And then all of a sudden, everybody was there. It was like a collection of ghosts just popped up, and I turned around, and the place is full. But I've always loved that Billy Graham. You know, and he's got that voice that commands you to pay attention. And he always had those hand motions. You ever notice that? Had good hand motions. I've never had that good hand motion because my hands have to be busy, and something's wrong if they're not doing something, and I'm playing with something. And that's bad. But I'd try to be serious. So speaking in churches at an early age, I would want to be serious and have people come down and let us meet Christ. And I would, you know, make. I don't know how many times I've had every head closed, every eye bowed, every time. And try to be serious. Try to be serious. One time I'm speaking at a church and I'm speaking about winning. Who in here likes to win? Who in here likes to beat your children at checkers? Say, okay, you know what I'm saying? Who in here wants to win at everything in life? Who in here will do almost anything to win? Almost, okay? Almost. Not lie, but fudge it a lot. You know what I'm saying? Okay. And I am speaking about winning. I'm speaking about God giving us dominion. And I'm just having a good time. And as I'm talking about it, I'm walking off the platform. And as I'm talking about winning and how God wants us to win, I'm looking at my wife. And I was just getting all excited, just being all full of myself, getting all through. And I said, how do you know God wants us to win? Everybody said, yeah, you know, I got a couple grunts and stuff. And I said, how many know God wants us? I said, in fact, I love women. Wait, stop. Everybody kept laughing. I said, stop, I don't like women. Stop. Wait, stop, I do like women. Okay, ho, time out. I had to catch myself. I mean, you got, and after a while, you just kind of just give up, okay? Because you got to know who you are. Look at somebody and say, know who you are. When I was 11 years old, I weighed about 140 or 50. When I was in 7th grade, I weighed 170. When I graduated high school, I weighed 170. So I grew out of it. My theme song for a lot of years was that great church hymn, Deep and Wide, okay? When I was growing up, I wore husky pants. And whoever created that name ought to be punished, okay? That's terrible to tell somebody, what size pants you wear? Your parents are never quiet. He wears husky. Where's that husky section? I mean, why don't you just put a sticker on my head? Fat boy over here. Where's the fat boy section? Come on over. You know, you almost kind of looking, especially if you had like stairs, you almost wanted the store people to go, hey, the fat kid made it without being winded. Hey, yeah, fat kid. Who in here has ever battled that? You know what's funny? I'm 38, and in here, sometimes I'm still fat. About a year ago, this month, I weighed 255. As of today, I weigh about 193 and 195. Now, how many of you know I weighed 255 on purpose? I did. Because I've never eaten an accidental meal. Think about it, okay? It's not like I'm just walking through, whoa, there's a banana pudding. My God, I didn't mean to. I mean, I didn't mean to eat all that. You know, what do? We say, well, I really shouldn't. But who in here has ever ate so much you just felt like you should die? Now, I know I'm a redneck, and I know I got redneck family. I got a cousin on Thanksgiving Day makes a plate. I mean, I kid you not. Plate's about this round. It just piles up. He'll eat about half of it. Doesn't matter who's there. President, ambassadors, aunts and uncles, mother-in-laws. He undoes his top belt. He unbuckles. He unzips a little bit. Just sits back and scratches and talks. And whenever he feels better, he starts eating and finishes the rest. I mean, sometimes we're just not proud of our family, okay? I mean, sometimes the best part of the family reunion is driving away, okay? And thanking God you don't have to see them a lot, okay? But in here, sometimes, as I started losing my weight, and me and my wife committed to each other, we'd change the way we live, we'd change what we eat. I've had a number of people ask me, say, are you going to quit eating the way you eat? And I'm like, no, because I don't want to be deep and wide. And I look at that, but you know what's funny is I looked at somebody and they said, you need to quit losing weight. I said, no, I don't. Somebody asked me tonight, and I said, I still would like to lose 10 more pounds. They're like, why? I said, because I'm fat. I need to lose weight. But it's because that image got so ingrained as a child. In fact, as I was in high school, and by the time I actually grew out of my weight, I'd have, I was so dumb. Look at somebody and say, dumb. Look at somebody and say, don't be dumb. Say, be stupid, but not dumb. Okay. Somebody would ask me, they said, do you like that girl? Why don't you talk to him? I was like, Lord, no, I'm fat. And this is when I wasn't fat. But who I was in here was fat. And you know what? You have to change who you are in here and accept who you are. I had somebody ask me one time, a good friend of mine, and he got real serious, and he looked at me and said, Chris, him and his wife, would you have plastic surgery? Well, I didn't know how to answer that. Because some people ask you questions to test you. So I didn't know if I said yeah, if I'd be condemned for that, for being vain. And I didn't want that. And I didn't know if I said no, if maybe they had something done. Or they knew, because we had been talking about some family and friends that had something done. So I'm thinking, so I just said, you know what, I got to be honest. I said, I'm just going to be honest. And they said, Chris, they said, really, would you? I said, heck yeah, I'd have plastic surgery, dear Lord. I said, if I had the money, I want my body sucked and clipped and zipped and nipped and just hoovered out. I said, I want to go in one way and walk out, hi there. You know what I'm saying? Me and my wife one night was watching Extreme Makeup. You ever watched Extreme Makeover? Raise your hand. My wife looks at me and she says something and she goes, look at all that. They're getting that done free. I was trying to be encouraging. I said, well, why don't you send your name in to them? How many know that didn't go over real well? I didn't mean it in a bad way. I meant that it was a good deal, okay? Be honest, who in here would send your name in to Extreme Makeover? I would. Until I downloaded the application, which is 12 pages long, and you got to take a picture of yourself in like a Speedo thing, and I just think that would be unsettling. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I got a good friend of mine here tonight, and he took some pictures of me, and then he went in with the miracle of Photoshop. Took out some little wrinkles. I took them home. I was all proud of them. Printed a couple of them off. Just real nice. I showed one to my wife. I said, look at that. I said, look at that. She goes, ooh, you look good in that picture. Fact, I like that picture better than you. I said, well, I'll cut the lips out and hold it up when I kiss you. How many of you got to have that good person behind you encouraging? How many of you know behind every great man, there is a mother-in-law? You know what I'm saying? Okay. But you got to. How many of you know that it doesn't matter what you change here? You still have to change here. And you got to know who you are. Look at somebody and say, know who you are. You got to accept it. More than that, you got to know it. You got to accept it. I think one of the greatest truths of life is that the Bible says that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. You need to accept who you are, that God made you special because He likes you being you, not you being somebody else. Number two. Everybody say number two. You got to take control of the atmosphere. How many know there's a lot of things in life that bombard us, a lot of attitudes, a lot of beliefs, a lot of different opinions. And how many know opinions are good? My opinions are good. I like my opinions. I don't like some of your opinions, which is why I try to control the atmosphere. Okay? That's why I'm up here and you're down there. Okay? As long as I'm up here, I can control the atmosphere. I can talk about the positive things in life. I can talk about my family. I can make jokes. I can control that atmosphere. I mean, many times things come in our life that try to control us instead of us controlling that time. When I was 8 years old, I learned what I call now the power of boom. I'm 8 years old. When I was 6 years old, true story, I'm in kindergarten, first grade, and a kid walks up and made the statement, his mama bought him clothes. And I thought, your mother is a loser. She don't make clothes. And then a kid made the statement, true, that his dad took the car to the shop. And I thought, I'm serious. I mean, this is a legitimate experience. I thought, your dad's a loser. Your dad doesn't fix the car? And then I realized we were poor, you know? And we just couldn't afford to have somebody fix it. I wouldn't change it. You know, it's funny when you look back on your childhood. Who in here sometimes you can look back and say, I had a hard childhood. But going through it, you didn't know it. You know, it's just kind of normal. When I was 8 years of age, we would go, and this was our summer entertainment. We never took a vacation. I don't care to this day to take a vacation. It just does not bother me because we did not grow up going somewhere to take a vacation. Vacation was going to my grandmother's. Vacation was going to the river and swimming, and then we'd find rocks. We'd put those rocks in buckets. We would take them home. We would paint the rocks. Now, you know, the more I tell that story, I look back on my childhood and I'm going, God, we were sad. I mean, how sad is it to take rocks and paint them? We had a great time. We was painting rocks, made all this, all that craft thing was taken off. This is in the, I'm 8, so that's probably 74 or so, you know, and back with all the polyester suits. Because you had so much polyester on, you couldn't do any great activity because you'd pass out from heat stroke. Who knows what I'm talking about, okay? You'd watch several men be in the mall, passed out right there. Why? They was walking too fast or maybe caught on fire because their cords just blew up on them, okay? And so here we are, and we go to the river, and we get these rocks. I found this rock that looked just like a nugget of gold, so I painted it gold and put it in my room like my gold nugget. My mother found 2 rocks that looked exactly like butterfly wings and 1 rock that looked exactly like a body, and another little round pebble that she was going to glue on it and make the head. So I walk into and she's painted these, had done very pretty, and now she's gluing these together. And this is before super glue or glue sticks and all this stuff. Because who in here watches HGTV? Raise your hand. If you're a woman and you watch HGTV. Stop, okay? Please let that channel go off the air, okay? Because I'm tired of coming home and my wife going, I've been thinking, which means I'm going to be working, okay? So stop. My mom is holding, with Elmer's glue, and the glue has just started to sit. And I am walking in the back door, and I open the door very quietly. I don't know why I did this. I still don't know why I do this. I don't know why I do this sometimes. As I closed the door, I went, boo! Like that. And she jerked exactly like everybody else in here did. And then she beat me for a while because those butterflies never looked right. One limb's out this way, one's out this way. And every time somebody asked about, you know, the malformed butterfly, I got beat almost. Well, it would have looked right if Chris hadn't come in and just yelled all the time. I always go, I'm just like you. You know. How many know that you've got to take control of the situation? Everybody say boom. I tell you, sometimes I think you ought to just go into some situation, and if it's not really working real well, like a Walmart customer service line, just walk up and let everything kind of get quiet and go, wow! And if somebody says, can I get you something? Said, I was hoping you would ask. It'll change. Promise you. It will change. But most of the time we are so intimidated by ever doing anything that breaks the norm, gets out of step. Cracks me up. Since I was a kid, I've loved wearing hats. And in the wintertime, I wear a dress hat. I like a dress hat. And I still wear my dress hat. I love wearing my overcoat. I like looking like I'm in the mafia. People do not mess with you, okay? And you can just look at them and go, leave me alone. And they will, okay? They'll just walk away. And I've had people like, because I'll dress that way, and they'll say, oh, you're just doing that to get attention. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I can get attention without doing it. Whoa! And you get attention. I mean, I got a whole other bag of tricks. They say, why do you wear that? Because I like it. Number one, it goes back to know who you are. But two, you got to control the atmosphere. There's all sorts of things that try to change us, change our thinking, change our faith, change our consciousness. And if we do not take control of the atmosphere, nothing else will. In fact, here's a great story. Everybody say Walmart. Who in here likes Walmart? I like Walmart too, because I'm hoping they hire me to speak. Okay, I like Walmart too. I do like Walmart. I'm in a Walmart one night, and this is December the 24th. December the 24th is what day? No, wait a minute. Somebody said what? The worst? Thank you very much. But I was evidently stupid that night and went. Now, you know why I went? Because I had forgotten to buy certain things. Now, you know what amazes me? It's not like they just came up with this idea of Christmas 6 months ago and sprung it on us, and we didn't know. You know, it's like President Bush, President Clinton, somebody's up there, they're all getting together and said, listen, we've got to have another shopping day. We don't have enough. There's Easter, there's Mother's Day, there's Father's Day, there's Grandparents' Day, there's Great-Grandson Day, there's In-Law Day, there's Outlaw Day, there's, Ex-Girlfriend Day. There's all these days. Let's have another one. Let's do Christmas. Who in here knows that Christmas is December? Say it again. Christmas Eve is December. And it never changes. I am in this line at Walmart on December 24th, Christmas Eve. And I'm kind of aggravated because I'm here. It's about 8:30. Who in here really wants to be here? Nobody, especially the people working. True? Which is why there's 185 registers and 3 open. Okay. So there's 3. They're all together. And there's just this line of people. I am in the middle register. I don't know what was wrong with this one. I don't know what was wrong with this one. But I am in this one. It is Christmas Eve. How many of Christmas Eve ought to be a fun night? It ought to be fun. I don't care where you're at. It ought to be fun. We're supposed to be celebrating the birth of Christ. It's supposed to be a time of joyfulness and giving and remembering others. Everybody in there is ticked off. Why? Because we're needing a price check because the barcode is not there. Everybody is mad at the checkout girl. Like she came in early on Christmas Eve and sabotaged the UPC codes to annoy us, okay? And we're standing in there. Everybody's mad. Everybody's just mad. Everybody's just irritated. They are looking. And you can feel the pressure on that little 17-year-old girl. And the more I sat there, I just thought, I am the stupid person here tonight. There's only one smart person here tonight, and it's the girl making money. Not the stupid people spending it. Because we could have spent it 363 other days. Because we're not going to buy it the day after Christmas, which I've always wanted to know why we could not make Christmas January 2nd. Since we don't really know the day that Jesus was born, why not January 2nd? Because that way we would get the benefit of the sales. Think about it. Okay. But we don't do that. Okay. So I'm standing in line, and I'm aggravated. And I made a decision. Everybody say decision. How many know everything in life starts with a decision? Everything. I made a decision. I am not going to be aggravated. This is the only Christmas Eve I'll have this year. And everybody's mad. Everybody's mad in my lane, and this lane, and that lane. And I just decided to start talking to myself. I didn't scream and go, boom. But I just decided to start talking, and I was kind of talking to this guy behind me a little bit, and this other guy, just, hey, how you doing? Yeah, we're having to wait and all that, and their attitude's getting off on me, and I don't like it. It's Christmas Eve. How many of you know that if you leave Walmart aggravated and go home, you'll probably go in the house aggravated? And I don't need to take that into my kids. So all of a sudden, I just turned around. I said, you know what? I said, this amazes me. I said, here we are. We've waited an entire year to shop for certain things, probably batteries. I said, but we waited. No, I couldn't buy them yesterday. Couldn't buy them last week. Couldn't even buy them online. No. We wait till tonight so that we can be annoyed at that little girl who don't even want to be here with us because we are all stupid people. I said, everybody in the aisle is stupid people. Look around. Just look around. I said, I said, hello, my name's Chris Vaughn. I'm a stupid person. Just want to let you know. I shook several hands. I said, I'm a stupid person. I want to let you know. I said, I've known for a solid year that this day was coming, and I kept putting it off. I threw it off. Didn't do anything. I said, that little girl, bless her heart, is waiting in line, not doing it. She's just doing her job. We're mad at her like she's sabotaging our day. I said, why are we mad? I said, tomorrow's supposed to be the birth of Christ. It's supposed to be celebrated. It's supposed to be excited. Supposed to have fun, get up and open up presents. I said, no, we're ticked off tonight because we're at Walmart. Nobody made us come up here unless we're married and got a bad mother-in-law, and everybody kind of laughed. I said, why are we here? I said, I'm a stupid person. I said, in fact, and everybody laughed when I said this. I said, we are all so stupid, we ought to exchange names and addresses. And everybody kind of laughed. Why? I said, because we'll probably be back here next year. Hi, my name's Chris Vaughn. I'm a stupid person. And I made a joke about it. I said, what is wrong with us? I said, we are all aggravated because we are here and we drove here. We chose to drive here, drive our car here. We chose to be, and I said, I don't understand that. I said, we are probably foolish, ignorant people who will be back here every year. In fact, we ought to just send out each other a card and letter invitation to come here every year. Everybody started laughing. I took control of that atmosphere, and I changed it. And as I'm leaving, I started getting even louder. I said, we ought to be encouraging to each other. We ought to be happy. I said, bless that little girl's heart. I said, it ain't her fault that there's other stupid people in line with us who didn't make sure it had a UPC code. And I didn't say that real loud because I didn't want the person in the front who didn't get the UPC code. I didn't say it real loud. I said that toward the back of the line. I mean, you got to change the atmosphere. You got to control it. Why? Because if not, it will try to control you. Everybody say number 3. To control that atmosphere and to know who you are, you got to pay attention to what you hear. Maybe what you hear changes you. As a child, I've always enjoyed impersonations, and I can't do a lot, but I can do a few. I love doing my Billy Graham. I love doing Ricky Ricardo. I really can't do it that well, but I can explain. Let me explain. Lucy, I like to explain. I can do my little Indian accent, kind of like, I like you work at, whatever, My name is Aftab, and I be coming from Baghdad, India, and when I was about 23, I had a real good friend. His name was Aftab. And Aftab was wanting to go back to Pakistan. You remember that? This is so. And every time I called these travel agents for him, they would say, Mr. Chris, we cannot get a ticket for 1785. It's all going to back up to. And I almost got to where I started doing it back to them. I mean, I'd hang the phone up and walk around and go, my name is Chris Vaughn, and we can take you over here. And one weekend, I can't do George Bush Sr. that well, but I would do my, look, I'd do my little things and say, gone, look, and I'd do my, my hand motions. I did it for a solid weekend one time going to New Jersey to speak to an AT&T conference. I checked in the hotel. The girl said, can I help you? I said, need a room, need a view for the people to bridge the future. Everybody just looked at me and I said, I'm sorry, I can't control it anymore. It just... I'm sorry. A good friend of mine, Scott Reese, got picking at this one voice I would do, and I'd do this voice. And he'd go, you know who that is? I said, no. I said, it's just this voice I made up. He goes, I'll tell you who that is. I said, who? He goes, that is Hank Hill from that goofy cartoon, King of the Hill. And all of a sudden, I got to where I couldn't do it. I mean, I could not stop doing it. I'd walk through the house, and my wife looked at me one time, and she said, you call me Peg one more time. Because I kept going in, I'd go, Peg. I'd say, Peg, if there's one thing that we can't take here, Bobby, where are you at, son? Let's be a God-fearing American here in Texas. And I would do that. I just couldn't stop it. It's funny to me, though, you get around certain people and you start talking like them. Is that not irritating? It's nice if they talk well. It's nice if they say good things. Who in here has ever said something and gone? Who in here has ever said something and then your mother went? Okay. Who remembers that? Okay. Go to the bathroom, get the soap. Okay. I mean, why? It's because it comes. Now, I do a lot of youth camps, and in these youth camps and stuff, I'll hang out with teenagers. I've always been raised, and I've always enjoyed older people. And by older, I mean people who are 10 years older than me, because they are smarter than me. Here's my theory. Why hang out with people as dumb as me? You know what I'm saying, okay? I don't mean that wrong, but they're as dumb as I am. They have no clue either sometimes when it comes to life issues or life choices. I've always liked being around people who, like at this point, about in their 50s or 60s. And so here we are. Everybody say older. I've always tried to carry myself a little bit older. My music styles have never been in my age range. They've always been older and stuff. And I'll go to camp, and I think I'm carrying myself very dignified, very nice, very polished. And after 1 week with 175 teenagers, I will go speak to a group and all of a sudden go, "What's up, man?" I don't do that. I just don't come in. I don't do high fives, high lows. I don't do all that stuff. But I'll leave after 175 kids. "What's up, man? What's up? What's up?" One year, this was popular. It was like baseball players. What does that mean? Yeah. Got all these motions. And if you go overseas and do that, they stone you. You know what I mean? It's like, he cussed me out 14 times, And I was driving somewhere, and I'm doing this. I couldn't get it out of me. Why? I had immersed myself in it, and it became who I was. Why? Because what we hear is who we become. There's a great scripture in Proverbs 13:20, which says, "He who sits in the counsel of the wise shall be wise, and he who sits in the counsel of the ungodly shall be broken." Guess what? It's our choice what we hear. A number of years ago, my little girl, Molly's about 6 years old. And every Wednesday night, we would go to Krispy Kreme Donuts and get donuts after church. And who in here knows that's a godly thing to do? Okay. I don't eat that way anymore, but it's still a good thing to do. For y'all. So on a Tuesday night one year, she asked me, she said, "Daddy, tell me a story." And I said, "Baby, I don't know any stories." I said, "I'm tired. I don't have." She goes, "Tell me one when you was a kid." I said, "Baby, I'm tapped. I have no new stories." And your daughter watches way too much TV when she says, "Well, just tell me a rerun." And I was like, "Oh, no." I said, "Let's do something different tonight." And I'm trying to be all excited. I'm trying to be parenting. I've got a parental prerogative thought in my mind when I did this. I said, "Baby, why don't you tell me a story?" She immediately just fell apart. Oh, Daddy, please. I don't know. Daddy, please. I don't know how. I said, "Molly, just make up something. Once upon a time, there was a man. He lived. He died. He was buried. He went to heaven. Just the end. Just have a once upon a time." In fact, my other daughter one time I spoke at a church, and she had this little book. All of a sudden, she goes, "I'm going to preach." I said, "Well, go for it, girl." She walked up on that platform, and she goes, "Once upon a time, there was a man. He got ate by a fish, and they lived happily ever after." She left the man in the fish. What was in the fish that would make you so happy? That's what I thought. He had big screen TV in that fish. Okay. So my daughter Molly, and so finally she goes, "I'll tell you one tomorrow." I said, "Fine, but tomorrow morning," and I said it that way, "you will tell me a story." Next morning we get up, we're doing breakfast. I said, "Molly, tell me a story." "Oh, Daddy, please. Let me tell you one tonight, please." "Oh, Daddy, please." She's so dramatic. Dear Lord. And I said, "Babe, okay, fine. Listen, tonight, before you go to bed, you got to tell me a story, okay?" I said, "That's what we'll do." And I said, "But now remember that you're promising me you'll do it. And words mean things. And you're giving me a commitment. And as Christians, we believe that if we lie, we go to hell. And you don't want to go to hell." I didn't say it like that, but I did say that. I said, because my parental thing was, like teach some integrity and all this stuff. So every time I saw her for one solid day, every time, I said, Molly, you're going to tell me a story tonight. Molly, before you go to bed, you're going to tell me a story. Molly, I can't wait. I'm just trying to get all excited. Molly, tonight, before you go to bed, you're going to tell me a story. Molly, you're going to tell me a story. You ready to tell me a story? I'm looking forward to the story, Molly. I'm going to have a story. I did it all day. We're driving to church. Molly, you're going to tell me a story tonight before you go to bed. We're driving to Krispy Kreme. Molly, you're going to tell me a story tonight. When we get home, we get the Krispy Kreme and we get our donuts. And who knows the 3 immutable laws of Krispy Kremes? Actually, it's 3 immutable laws of life, but it applies to Krispy Kremes, okay? Number 1, you're not a Christian because you go to church. You're not a car because you go to a garage. And you're not a policeman because you go to Krispy Kremes. Think about that. It's a great rule, okay? We go to church, we get our Krispy Kremes, we come home, we sit at the dining room table, and I can still see this night. I turned and looked at her, I said, Molly, tell me a story. And she immediately broke, oh, Dave, please. I said, Molly, you promised me, now hush it. I said, cough out a story right now. I said, I want to hear something. I said, you promised me, you gave me your word, and you'll die and go down. No. And I didn't say it. I said, tell me when. She goes, okay. She made up this little story. I don't even remember the story now. But at least she did the story. I mean, and that's what I want, at least try. That was my theory. That was what I was hoping she would get. So she eats her donut. She has her milk. She goes to bed. She started coughing. And it was during the wintertime, so she just had this little, slight cough thing. And my wife said, honey, please take this cough medicine to her. It's about 10:30 now. And give it to her, and it's just enough to where she'll fall asleep, and then she'll sleep good. Okay. So I go up to the bedroom. I got the little thing of cough syrup, and I try to wake her up, and she sleeps so deep. And I said, Molly, wake up. She goes, oh, Daddy, please. I said, Molly, wake up, baby. I said, Molly, I need you to take this cough medicine. Daddy, I don't want to, please. I said, Molly, just wake up real quick. I said, this is all, just all you got to do is just take this cough medicine. Oh, Daddy, I don't want to, please, not now. I was like, Molly, it's just cough medicine. You like the flavor of this stuff. You enjoy this. I said, you're asked to drink this. Just take this. Just, Daddy, I don't want to, Daddy, please. I said, Molly, take this, Daddy, please. I said, Molly, sit up in that bed and take this medicine. She sits up and goes, fine! Once upon a time! I cracked up. I left the stuff and ran outside. Ran down. My wife's laughing on the couch. I'm laughing. I went back up, got the cough medicine. I kind of rushed. She said, oh, what, Daddy, what? And she woke back up. I said, Molly, take this cough medicine. She said, okay. I said, I love you, baby. She didn't even remember screaming at her dad. Fine! But how do you know that's the power of boom? Okay? She controlled that atmosphere real quick. Now I'm going to tell you something. Why did she do that? Because all she heard from her mean dad all day was once upon a time. Tell me a story. A lot of times we discount the things that we hear the most. Sometimes we discount the things that we say the most. I don't think a day should go by that I don't tell my wife and my 3 kids I love them. That will not ever happen. Most of the time I wear them out with it. Okay, Daddy, okay. I love you too. I love you the most too. Okay, you love me the most. Okay. We're best friends forever and always. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Fine! Okay. But you know what? What we hear changes as to who we are. I want to challenge you. More than anything else, realize the worth of who you are. Take control of the atmospheres that speak to you. Why? So that you can listen to the good things that change you into being productive. Who in here knows that you can have everything you want in life? Anybody can. You just have to work for it. And nothing worth value is cheap. And nothing cheap is ever usually worth of any value. So I want to encourage you tonight as we close to shoot for the stars. Aim high. Wouldn't it be better to aim for the moon and miss and at least be amongst some stars? I had a guy ask me one time, he says, you know what? He says, what if you try this and you fail? I said, well, I'll be a lot better off than if I didn't and never did and never knew what would happen. What's funny is I'm still doing what I'm doing. He's not. And I might not be on the moon yet, although to my mother-in-law I probably am, okay? I am in outer space. But I do believe in what I do. And I want to challenge you tonight to do what you know to do. Thank you very much.